This is Gary Hartley by the chalkboard. My guest today is Marwyn Bhanderi. Marwyn, welcome and thank you for joining me for a good conversation about life.
Yes, thank you, Gary. I'm honored to be here.
Good. You describe yourself as a teacher of the philosophy of life. You enjoy inspiring people and helping people reach their potential. You've spent years studying the human brain and nervous system. You've traveled different places over the world and seeking out mentorship from intelligent and fascinating people. You've spoken in several different continents in front of audiences, and you have a podcast called Back to Being. And really fascinated by a lot of this that I want to ask you about. Starting with your travels, I noticed that in October you were in Tennessee and you got to see Sadhguru.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was a phenomenal experience. I mean, I say phenomenal, but at the same time, we have to remember that we're all just people, right? Just because someone's of a high stature, and even he would probably say the same thing. Just because someone's of a high stature doesn't mean that we put ourselves below them. Right? We all grow by learning from each other. Uh, but the reason I went there is because he was traveling around America on a bike tour, and I just happened to see it was like 2 days before that. Oh, he's ending in Tennessee, so I was like, well, I have the weekend off. I might as well go there and check it out. So it was really random, but it was pretty cool to see. And even like a few years ago, talking about Sadhguru, I didn't even know who he was. So his presence on social media, especially on YouTube, brought my attention to him, and I was fascinated with what he was talking about, and it resonated with me. And I think it resonates with a lot of young people. So he's really winning on that aspect.
Yeah, I didn't know who he was until about maybe 2.5 years ago, and started listening to him and looking at some of the things he was doing in India and the massive response he was getting just to improve a person's life. And I loved listening to him. So I was so interested in seeing uh, what your experience there was. Now, did you just see him as he drove by, or did you have an opportunity to listen to him?
I had an opportunity to listen to him. Like, he spoke for about an hour and a half. So that was pretty cool. It was pretty cool to see him with his motorcycle. I know I've seen it on YouTube where he's driving his motorcycle around, but to see it live in person was pretty funny. Yeah, you got a 60 something year old man driving 10,000 miles. That shows, what's age. He's still acting young, right? So all of us can do the same.
Yeah.
It's just a mindset thing.
Yeah. So age to you is not it's not so much of a number anymore. It's a mindset of maybe your existence of life.
Yeah, you can say that. And as you mentioned, I just think about like Tom Brady, right? Or you've got athletes like, I remember, I think it's a lot of top athletes, whether it's in like football or soccer. And Tom Brady comes to my mind right now because he's like 42, 43 years old, still playing at the highest level. And you have people like Cristiano Ronaldo, Zlatan Ibrahimovic, 39, Ronaldo, 34, Messi's around the same. I think these guys will play to 40 and plus. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because I think they're shattering the notion of after a certain age, your body just wears out and you can't do things. I mean, you got Mike Tyson doing a boxing match this coming weekend. He's 54 years old. So, I mean, if you train your mind, body, and soul, keep everything in alignment, who says you can't keep going on? Who says you can't keep performing at a high level? So obviously, there's limits of matter as we age. Certain things are going to happen, right? I'm starting to get more gray hairs or white hairs. That's part of life. The only thing we know for sure is we're going to die, so we might as well enjoy living on the way there. So we can't be afraid of that. But if we train ourselves, we can accomplish amazing things at any age. I truly believe that.
No, and I think that's really encouraging. And you have spent time studying a number of different aspects of the human being. You've said that you've spent the last few years studying the brain and the nervous system in order to, how you describe it, as integrate our life experiences so we can perform at a higher level. How did you get into studying about the brain and the nervous system?
So I started like a meditation program about 7 years ago, and that led me to chiropractic, and I ended up studying chiropractic. And that's where I didn't really know what chiropractic was, but it was a philosophy that got me into it, where everything in the, especially where I went to school at least, where everything in the universe is self-healing, self-maintaining, self-conscious, self-maintaining. And this hit a light bulb in my head. It's like, this is the same thing I'm learning in my meditation class. There's a profession for this, and I don't have to be a monk. Hell yeah, I'm in. But then I realized there's a plethora of professions, plethora of people all around the world who have a similar philosophy about this vitalistic philosophy where everything is self-conscious, self-healing, etc. But I didn't know that at the time, and it was just fascinating to me, and I just jumped into it. And what I realized was chiropractic is not just about moving bones into place. It is actually about bringing man to physical and man to spiritual together, connecting the mind, body, and soul together. And it's actually been the catalyst over the last 7-8 years for me to meet people like yourself and other people around the world who are doing all different things in all different walks of life, all different professions, but we all have this same, like, similar philosophy of like trying to improve the human condition and also trying to make sure we maximize our inner potential. And so it's really just been the gateway to so much more. So this is why I started looking into the brain nervous system. It's like, okay, every time what I'm doing is creating a vibratory field that allows healing. When I make what we call an adjustment in chiropractic, every time it influences the brain, especially the frontal lobe, it lights up the brain, where your emotions are. It allows you to go from a stress state to a state of ease, right? To sympathetic to parasympathetic. And then even meditation can do this, right? Breath work can do this, exercise can do this, what you're eating can do this. So then it became a thought in my mind, like, what if you compound all these things together? What can happen? I don't have the full answer of that, but we're all experiencing that. And I mean, my life's transformed for sure over the last 6-7 years, and I want to help people do the same. So this is what I mean by when I say study the brain nervous system, and obviously studying fascinating minds across the world, spending time with some of them in person. And one of the biggest things I would like to touch on is our perceptions. A lot of times, our issues come from the way we see the world, and it's all about how you see the world. And what I mean by that is, for example, we're wondering why we're losing money, or we're wondering why a relationship's not working out, or we're wondering why I'm not able to get the physique I want. It all starts in the mind. And a lot of times we aren't aware of where that blockage is, where we're stuck, but that pattern kind of drains us and blocks us from moving forward and achieving things in our life. And so, and a lot of times we see, like, for example, right now in the world, what's going on, the myriad of weird things. People will say there's a lot of negativity, but we also have to see, contrastingly, simultaneously, at the same time, the same place, there's always something good going on. And this was a profound teaching that I learned along the way. Yes, while there may be negative things or strange things in our perception, and it's all because just of our perception, at the same time, there's also a lot of good going on. For example, you could say right now, like earlier in the summer, the office I was working in, we had to shut down for 2 months. But in that time, I also started working online. So that was a gift in itself. Otherwise, maybe I wouldn't have gone online. So, so there's always something. But if we get stuck and drown in our sorrows and it's a stupid analogy, but if you're sitting on the toilet and never get off, you're gonna get flushed down. But so eventually you gotta wipe your tears off. And I'm not saying be unemotional. We're human. We're meant to have emotions, anger. We get sad, but at the same time, we can't stay there forever. We have to have a method or strategy to lift us forward.
Does it seem like um, a lot of our suffering comes from the way we interpret things?
I would definitely say so, yes. And it has a lot to do with our conditioning. We've heard this phrase a lot thrown around: mothers, teachers, preachers. You can say doctors, etc. Governments, officials, whoever is kind of being the authority figure to teach us our compass of life. Now, this is all well and good as we grow up because we need guidance. And I think family today in our world, family has been neglected. We need family guidance too, especially when we're growing up. The modern world where parents aren't able to spend time with their children because they're running after money. Now, I'm not saying money is not important. It is important. It's a great tool. It's energy. We must value it in order to get it so we can allow ourselves, free ourselves up to do other things. But there has to be a balance of everything. So what was the question again?
I was talking about how uh, getting your insight into suffering and wanting
Oh,
to
yes.
know whether you thought that suffering came from the way we interpret things.
Yeah. So this is yeah, so you're coming back to it, exactly. So all these conditioning that we go through in our life, we need that as we grow up. We're young. We need guidance, but at some point we have to flip the switch, and flip the switch means learning how to listen to our inner voice. And now we all know this. Like if you ask a child knows, a 5-year-old child knows someone's strange. They will cringe. They will start holding the leg of their parent. They can sense something that's not right. It's in what I call, my scientific terminology, bullshit meter. That's in all of us. It's our gut feeling, and it's almost taught out. Like we're taught not to use it through our education system, through the way we manage our health. It's like, oh no, that can't be right. You have to listen to so and so. What you said is wrong. No, you can't ask questions. What we teach you is the only thing that's right. Your individual thought is incorrect. And I don't think this is good, because it's creating a lot of conflicts. Now we have to learn how to use our intuition. I think this is very important because it's our guiding mechanism. And each one of us is born with a special tool, with a special gift that is meant to go out there into the world. So our inner being, our soul, is our highest purpose seeking mechanism. It's constantly trying to guide you to what you're meant to do in this life, how you're meant to serve others, what maybe you're meant to be the next Mozart. It's constantly, if you're trying to be a bartender, you're going to have conflicts because you're not in alignment with yourself. And a lot of people are living like this because they think that they can't live the life that they want. Inside they know, oh, I'm really good at playing the piano, but I can't, it's safer just to work at the bank. So I'm just going to shelve that and be miserable my whole life. Now, I'm not saying like to everyone go quit their job today. You can't, that's stupid. If your job or your business, stay in it. But at the same time, figure out how to get where you want to go. But first, you have to figure out who you are, and that comes with the inner work. Easier said than done, I know. But when you do the work, when you find the magic within, it's the most liberating thing in the world. And my goodness, do you see people blossom?
So you talked about this intuition or inner voice. Is that something different than the mind, like the voice of the mind and the voice of intuition? Is there a difference between those things? Are they similar?
There's varying school of thoughts on this. And I can tell you from perhaps a unique perspective to many people, from a chiropractic lens, where I think this originates from Stevenson and BJ Palmer. BJ Palmer was like a developer of chiropractic. And this is where I first learned it, reading some of his work. This was probably 100 years back in the 1920s, 30s, around that time. And he talked about, and this is not unique to chiropractic. I know other spiritual leaders, other scientists have alluded to this. Maybe they call it different terms, but he talked about the innate mind and the educated mind. And some people might call this the left brain and right brain, perhaps, like the creative side or the analytical side. But the innate mind is your intuition. It's your inner voice, right? It's that little guide inside of you. Actually, it's a big guide. It's a little guide, but ends up being a big guide. Then the educated mind is what you learn. The way I frame it is, the educated is what you use to navigate the world we're in, the physical world. The innate mind is where you're getting these resources from the infinite, the quantum field, for example. There's an infinite number of resources out there, in my opinion. And many people, would attest to this, such as Joe Dispenza as well. So you can't use one or the other. A lot of the times we try to become too intuitive, or we try to become too analytical. We see this today, many conflicts we're having in the world, like, oh, the science, or is it backed by research? And we can't measure everything. We do have to have metrics, right? I don't think anyone has ever achieved anything of a grand scale without measuring their progress. But at the same time, along with that, there's, like, you can't measure what's going on in the metaphysical plane. So that's where the innate mind is kind of talking to you, and the educated mind is how you navigate the world. Like, okay, you know, I have to walk down the street. There's a traffic light. I've got to get in the car. That's you know, you got to use that. You can't just ignore that. Oh, I'm just going to float across and I'm going to jump off the building and fly. Like, no, calm down. Like, you have to use your interpretation of the world we're in. But I'm not saying to limit yourself, because maybe we can fly. We just haven't discovered how we do it yet. But at the same time, the educated mind keeps us from making. It's how we navigate the world. But the innate mind is where we get. Is where we can. Is where the exploration of an inner being comes to fruition in this physical world. So I think we need to be able to use both. You can't use one or the other.
And the reason I asked that question is because I'm looking at my own experience of life while you're talking, and there seems to me to be a different voice. That's the only way I can describe it. A different voice between this intellectual mind, just of memory, education, learning, and this voice that seems to come from deep within me, like this connection, like there's a connection to something much greater than myself. And it seems to me there's a different, it sounds different to me. It's not just the memory, there's this deepness to it. I can't explain it past that, I think, but I've recognized that there's something like that. And so that's why I asked you that question. And I love the way you described it there.
No, I definitely agree with you. There is something. There is something there, and some people may call it the energy, life force, the soul, the atma, whatever it may be. But there is something there, and we have to learn to get in tune with that. And I think that's what this time, this 2020, this portal year that will go on from, you know, depending on who you listen to, the next 10 years. So we have this wonderful period that we're just at the beginning of. This is the time where people who ascend to connect with their inner being and their spiritual self will be able to accomplish things that we may have never seen before. I think we'll have breakthroughs that we've never seen before. People will start doing things, breaking barriers, achieving things. While contrastingly, there's a lot of darkness, there's also a lot of light. You know, Albert Einstein said this many years ago: as the circumference of the darkness increases, so does the light. And I think that's what we're having in the world right now. So we have to. That's why it's so important to able to have that perspective of seeing both sides. Otherwise, if you only see one side, if you go only see the positive and you're all the way up here, you're going to get knocked down. If you're all the way down in a dungeon, something will pull you up. But that's just the nature of the universe. There's always an equilibrium. But if we get too far on one end of a spectrum or another, it can be quite dangerous. But sometimes that's what's necessary to bring order. Chaos brings order. So maybe that's what we're in.
Yeah, I noticed that um, during times of difficulty, or what I perceive as difficulty, if I only look at it as difficult, then it kind of keeps me in that negative state. But if I look at it also as an opportunity to learn and grow, it changes my perspective on what it is I'm looking at.
Absolutely. Definitely agree with you.
What could a person do if somebody said, you know what, I'm going through a difficult time and I don't know how to look at it in a positive way? How could you help someone look at something in a positive way?
Well, I'd say you probably want to leave your partner. No, I'm just kidding. Now, you see, like, you know, it's how to look at something in a positive way. Now, we have to be careful here, because this whole notion of like positive thinking, it does work. Like affirmation, it does work, but there's a whole side missing to the equation. And that's what I'm going to explain to you right now, because everyone knows about the positive thinking stuff, the affirmations, feel good, whatever. But that's temporal. It doesn't. If you notice, most people don't really stay in that state for a long period of time. It wears off very fast, and the reason is, until you can see the beauty in the flaws of yourself and others, until you can see the beauty in the disaster or destruction that's taking place, until you can see the gift and blessing in what's gone wrong, and the positive stuff is not going to work that well. It takes both. So the person has to, say for example, they have an issue with a person, they're going to have to find the benefits and drawbacks of that person. Say for example, people having trouble with the world today with coronavirus, lockdown, whatever it may be, economic situation. And it's justifiable. I can understand that people get angry, they get sad. This year was a curveball for many people. I mean, I can't fault anyone for how they reacted. There's many things I didn't agree with, many movements I didn't agree with. The way some people's ideologies, philosophies I didn't agree with, but I respect them, and that's we have to make sure we allow that in the world, people to express themselves without violence. I mean, I think, and that's how we get better solutions. But for example, with what's going on, we have to be able to see. And one of my mentors, he calls it Saint Corona, and the reason is that because we're going to look back at it and see all the gifts and blessings that came out of it. So we have to sit down and really look at things and like, okay, my business closed, but now what can I do? It's opened up a whole world of opportunities for me. Maybe that I lost my job, or maybe that book you wanted to write, or maybe that business you want to open. Maybe you're a good cook, and now is your time to do it. This is, in my opinion, this is the time for entrepreneurship. This is the time to really get after it. Put your bootstraps on and just become what you're. This is the greatest time in history. Some people call it the Great Awakening. It's because it's allowing. When things aren't working out, it doesn't happen by random. Nothing happens by random. Like a person doesn't die by random. A business doesn't close by random. It looks like we can play the victimhood card all our lives, and it won't get us very far. But we can be a victim. I'm not saying not to say that, but you can't stay in that energy. You can't stay in that vibration for a long period of time. It's very self-destructive. And no one's going to come and rescue us when we're sabotaging ourselves. So we must be able to see, and it's easier said than done, but if you sit down, and really look at it, I take people through a methodology that I've been trained in to do all this. But even if you just do it by yourself, you can start seeing what's going on. And it's a lot deeper than I can explain, but this is the basic essence of it.
You and I are only having this conversation because 2.5 months ago, I lost my job, and I did
Wow.
really, that's what happened. And I did a lot of what you're saying. I sat down with a piece of paper and wrote out everything I could possibly do in life, what I could do, what I wanted to do, even crazy things. And I just started kind of narrowing it down. And this podcast idea kept rising to the top. It was as if I couldn't stop it from rising to the top. It kept popping up there. And so I went with that thinking, this is something that keeps appearing in my life. I need to pay attention to that because it keeps popping up and right in front of me. That's why we're having this conversation, because I listened to that and I just took a risk and took a step out into something that I knew I would enjoy doing, but was also very challenging. I had the time to do it. And look where we are now. Now I'm having conversations with people all over the world, and it's fabulous.
I love that. That's freaking amazing. Yeah. And I just hope many people can listen to this and get inspired by you, to take that leap of faith and go into the abyss. That's where magic happens.
Yeah, it's been a challenge for me to look at um, difficult times as opportunities, and I'm looking at my past, but the last couple of years of my life, especially the last few months, that changes, where when these opportunities come up or something difficult comes up, I'll look at it more as an opportunity rather than uh, how do I describe it? Rather than something happening to me, it's happening for me.
Touche. Absolutely. This is a big piece you just shared. People can flip the switch on that thought pattern. It will help big time. Because there's a hidden order in the universe. We just got to get in alignment with it. And sometimes we can't understand what's going on. But if we look back at it, like, so for example, what happened 10 years back, 10 years ago, I was pissed off, right? Whatever it may be. Like, but then looking back at it now, I was like, oh, that was great. But sometimes we can't see it straight away. We just keep moving, get busy. When we don't know what to do, right? I think it was Gandhi or someone, Mandela, I don't know, said, I forget exactly, get lost in service. If you don't know, if you, rather than, don't just drown yourself in drugs and alcohol. I mean, if you want to have a good time, you can, I'm not opposed to that. I've attained myself quite a bit this year on that aspect. So, I just thought I want to be a difference maker, right? So I don't have time for that. But there's nothing wrong in having a good time. I'm not saying that, and I don't judge anybody for it. But I'm saying, add some value to others. If you don't know what to do, just serve. We all have unique gifts. Just do something, and you'll start finding answers along the way. And maybe it's not the right thing, but by doing it, by moving, moments build momentum. It's in the word. So once you put something into action, some things start happening. It's just a law of nature.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time in my life being very hesitant and noticed exactly what you said, that when I just took action and did something, that it always opened up new opportunities for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, she's not going to say yes if you don't ask, right?
Right. I'm an amateur photographer, and the way I would say it is, you'll never take a picture until you push the shutter, but you got to get out and just start taking pictures. Otherwise, there's no pictures.
Yeah, there was this weird song that I just randomly heard earlier today. It was one line and it kept saying, "I'm ready for the next mistake," and I was like, sounds really strange, but at the same time, I kind of liked it, because if you're not ready for the next mistake, when are you going to get the victory? Because sometimes victory doesn't come. For some people, it comes on the first hit, right? They get a home run first time they're up at bat, but for many people, it doesn't work that way. So if you're one of those people right now, you think you're down in the dumps listening to this, don't worry, man. There's a billion of us on the same path as you. We're still trying to figure it out. And if we keep training, we keep working hard, we keep being creative, keep finding solutions, eventually something will strike.
Yeah, I agree. And it's fun and enjoyable to me, and you've mentioned this to me, to help other people with their own value of their expression of life.
Yeah. This is what you just said is vastly important, like their own value, because we all have different value systems. Like, my top 3 values are teaching, traveling, learning, and teaching. For someone else, it might be writing, I don't know, like cooking, spending time with family, right? So, I mean, when you meet someone else's values, you will succeed with what you're serving them with. If you're trying to impose your values upon someone, you're probably not going to make a lot of sales. You're probably not going to connect with people. You're going to have a lot of barriers. So knowing someone else's value system gives you an advantage on how to connect with them, big time.
So I can't repeat what you said exactly, but you said something like that. Somehow you're going to find your own value in serving others.
You can, if you don't have a clue how to analyze yourself, you can do that. You'll figure it out. But our life reflects our values. Like, the things we spend the most time on is the things we value the most. So if someone's spending the most time on, some R-rated stuff, or things, maybe they're just drinking all day, or maybe they're playing video games, and that's not how. And they might write down, oh, my values are making money, working out. But that's their imagination. I mean, that's their fantasy. But the reality is they're just sitting on the couch playing video games all day. So if your values don't reflect where you want to be in life, then you can change that. We all have the power to change. But maybe you're meant to be a video game developer. So dive deeper into that. I don't know. I mean, it doesn't mean you have to go be a gym nut, right? So just because everyone else is putting on Instagram with their 6-pack abs doesn't mean that's yours. Maybe you're the next director of a movie. I don't know. But we're not all going to have the same. But usually our life already reflects what we value the most. And if you don't like it, then you can change it.
Your life reflects what you value the most. Yeah, It does. I've noticed in my life that whenever I get, I guess, whenever I notice something like depression or being lazy, it's because my attention is not on something that's important. And if I will
Mm.
just give my attention to something just for a moment, it seems to energize me and in a way, push me forward into a greater exploration of life.
Yeah,
Is it about is it about attention? Giving your attention to something? Is that important?
I think so. Uh, I always say with the right intention and intention, it's very important in any pursuit of anything you're doing. If you're doing something without attention, it's not just attention, but intention is huge too. Both go together. A lot of times people are just focusing on one or the other. But if you're spending your attention on, say, basketball, but you don't like basketball, it's not likely that you're going to be the next Michael Jordan. So what are you spending your attention on? Like some people spend like a lot of time on a project, but they get nothing done. Probably not the right project for you. So it's okay to reevaluate. But yeah, I mean, if you're not present with what you're doing, it's very difficult to get good results of anything. So I mean, attention is part of that. Yes.
Hmm. Okay. Does it seem like to you that what happens to you personally, I mean, within yourself and your own little experience of life, is also a reflection of what happens in a broader sense in this entire world?
Absolutely, there is truth to that. I think while we there's something I heard from Alan Watts a while ago that said that uh, anything that you're thinking of, there's millions of other people around the world thinking the same thing. So you may feel like it's an abstract idea, it's out there, it's no one's going to like it, but that's what probably someone said about the internet 30 years ago, or like website building. Oh, you don't need a website. In 1995, you didn't need a website. We need a website for, right? You had the other pages, but so just something like that. So, and I'm not saying maybe we need to scale back a little bit on the technology before we lose our human touch, but we have to use everything to advantage. As long as we can use it to advantage. Just a little aside here before I get back to your point. With the technology, I think as long as we use technology to advantage, we can remain human. But if we let it overtake us, that can be very dangerous. But to remind me of the question again. Sorry, I just got lost on that technology.
No, that's fine. I was talking about whether your own individual experience as
Oh, yeah, it's the
this
same as the
small
world.
speck kind of is a micro picture of what happens in the world.
Yes, we're constantly mirroring. I do see that. Uh, it's probably why a lot of times you would sometimes say, oh, we just you meet this lovely lady at the beach and you happen to start talking about similar concepts. It's not random. You're attracting people based on your vibration. Like 2 years back, I'd go to the beach and I'd probably attract the party animal, right? Or 5 years back, 10 years back, whatever, just arbitrary. And then now I'll probably attract someone who's doing business or more spiritual or entrepreneurial. So it is a reflection, and we kind of think that the whole world is having our experience, because that's true, because we're going to see the world from our experience, but that doesn't mean it's the only experience. But so yes, there is a mirroring going on, but in that but as you mentioned, that we are just like a little speck, so we have to remember that. Sometimes people ask me what matters, and I say nothing matters, but everything matters at the same time. So it's like, and people get confused when I say that. It's like, the reason I say that is because a lot of times, I mean, what we are stuck on, sometimes we get paranoid about our own achievements or what I did or who I'm meeting or whatever it may be. But it's just a tiny aspect of the whole grand spectrum of this magnificent creation that we're living in. So yes, we are. Everything is there to remind us of who we are. The trees, the ocean, all the elements, right? The earth, water, fire, wind, ether, everything going on around us, whether it's another person, whether it's nature, it's there to give us a sign or a message. It's there to teach us something. Sometimes simply, it's just there for us to enjoy. You don't have to always have a profound uh, light bulb go off. It can just be, I had fun today. Wonderful. You don't have to interpret everything so deeply. Yeah, I tend to do so because I just find it interesting. But you can just enjoy the moment. You don't have to always go so deep. But if you do, there's a lot of special things in there.
No, I love that. I realize that I go deeper and deeper in things, but at the same time, the deeper I go, I become more aware that, like you said, that sometimes I can look at something and just say, I'm going to just enjoy that because it's here right now. I'm not even going to think about it or process it or try to go deep. This is just enjoyable. It's kind of like looking at a beautiful sunset. I just enjoy it because it's there in front of me. I don't have to go deep into it at all. It's just here. It's beautiful this moment.
Yeah, I love that. And sometimes that's what it's meant for. It's just meant for us to remind ourselves of the simplicity of our lives.
Mm.
So we can, and I think a lot of times our problems are arising because we're trying to overanalyze everything when we just need to appreciate it and enjoy it.
Yeah, agreed. One of the things I wanted to ask you about too is in your chiropractic work. You said getting into that was the first high performance thing you have ever done in your life. How is that high performance? And what did you learn from that?
Oh yeah, the reason I said I got it's from when I listened to Dan Pena a couple of years back, and he mentioned about you got to do something high performance, and I was realizing, well, that's what I'm doing right now with chiropractic, and I was still I was at the end of my studies at that time, uh, and the reason I say it's the first high performance thing is, I mean, I played sports before, I studied really hard, etc. I mean, I've achieved some stuff. We've all achieved things throughout our life, but the reason I say this is the first high performance thing, it's the first thing I really committed myself to. It's the first thing that for like 2.5 to 3 years, we used to wake up at 5:30 in the morning and train, right? It's the first thing I really had, I would spend time on the weekends going to seminars, events, spending time with people further ahead in me, listening to them, just being in their vibration, anything I can pick up, even a tiny little nugget, whatever. Sometimes I don't even know what they're saying because it's like, it is English, but it sounds like a foreign language because it's so profound. But sometimes you just need to soak in the vibration. But really going all in. It's the first time in my life I really went all in on something, was chiropractic. That's why I say it's the first high performance thing. So I don't think, and that's when I realized, it's almost as if, having an attachment is not healthy, but you almost have to be obsessed with something. You have what I mean by this is like, you have to become it. Like I had to become chiropractic in order for me to fully understand it. I had to understand its flaws. I had to understand its greatness. I had to cry. I had blood, sweat, and tears along the journey. And this is what I mean by this. The first high. If you don't have blood, sweat, and tears, I don't think you have high performance. You're not doing something high performance. If you're not waking up inspired, if you're not waking up, if you don't challenge yourself while you're awake, I don't think you're doing high performance activities. And we all have something that we need to do. When we do something of high performance, it inspires us. So that's why I said it's the first high performance thing I've ever done.
Okay.
It's a commitment. Yeah, almost like I never been in the military or never been anything like that, but I think even if you don't go into the military, I think we all need like at least some time in our life where we commit ourselves, something like that. It's almost, I kind of look back at my last 10 years. It's almost like going into monkhood, but not going into monkhood. It's like you just have to go all in. You don't have to necessarily be in a monastery. You don't have to whatever. I don't even know what they do, but and if you look at any high performance person in any industry, any field, any walk of life, they have given it their all. They went all in. You don't become you don't go to the top of the charts just like that. So if you're not shooting for something, then you kind of get pushed around in life. But when you are really committed to a path of mastery, and that dedicate, I mean, the resistance will come, the demons will come, the challenges will come, but you will figure out a way to bust through. And at the end, you feel this great joy, but then you realize instantaneously that's it after like 10 years. But you have a big smile on your face because you know that was just a catalyst for so much more.
So the resistance seems to be necessary to expand and grow, doesn't it?
Yeah, I don't know. This is something I've been trying to tackle for many years. I don't think I've been trying to think, like, can you get to this state without having those great challenges, those tragedies, those moments of despair? And I think I'm coming closer and closer to the conclusion that you can't. I don't think you can, because that's part of most people that we look up to or like or revere is they've gone through, like, you know, they've gone through ups and downs like you wouldn't even imagine. And I think that's what builds resilience. That's what builds that fortitude that gives you the confidence and courage to keep expanding and building, serving at a high level. So I think it's necessary. I don't think it's unavoidable. And actually, I don't fear or worry about people, but but for the people that haven't gone through those challenges, it's going to come at some point. And or that just means they're not pushing themselves hard enough. Because if you push so hard enough, you're going to have resistance. There is no way that you won't. And it comes in many forms. Maybe someone putting you down. It could be financial, it could be physical, whatever it may be, right? But if you don't learn how to deal with it, you won't go further.
Yeah, it seems like in life we learn that kind of in levels. Like you learn it physically first because you have to have resistance in order to grow muscle and to get stronger and to move
Right.
faster. And then you start learning it on other levels of the human being, as far emotional and
Yeah.
and spiritual, and then it just expands from that. Like, oh, that resistance physically, I love that, lifting the weights, and then recognizing, oh, I have to do the same thing with this emotional thing that's occurring right here, and to strengthen what needs to be strengthened within me there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Well, Dr. Marwin, I have absolutely loved this conversation with you, and I've loved getting to know you over the last several weeks because you were a mentor of mine in this podcast course I took called Broadcast Yourself by Brian Rose of London Real. And it has been a pleasure to know you and to hear about your aspect of life and the encouragement that you bring to this world in your work.
Yeah, thank you so much, Gary. You've been fantastic along this process, and I'm pumped to see what you come up with over the coming months and years. The only thing I'm disappointed about today is I don't see your chalkboard.
It's on the other side of me. I kept playing around with it, thinking, how can I fit this in my podcast screen? And I never could quite get it to fit. It's so big. It's a 4-foot wide board that somebody gave me. And I tend to use it for my vlogs. I'll go outside and set it there because I've got room. I can sit in front of it, but it is here. Definitely. It's in my living room. And
one thing I do admire about you, it's you're calm and composed most of the time. Actually, all the time. I don't really ever see you in any other state. I mean, I'm sure you do get mad behind the scenes. I don't know, but you're always calm and composed, and you get things done without. You know, it's just, and I think a lot of people can learn from that. So I know you'll achieve great things. There's no doubt about it. And yeah, I mean, people haven't checked out your vlogs. They go check them out just for the chalkboard. It's entertaining and it's informational. So.
Well, and if you want to, you should check out Dr. Marwin, his podcast, which I'll have a link to it down below. wherever this is posted, and it's called Back to Being. It's the word back, number 2, and the word being.
Yeah, and absolutely. And people want to follow me on social media. Instagram is just Dr Marwin. You can do that too. That way you can keep up with what's going on. You know, I sometimes it gets me in trouble, but I communicate in a myriad of things, you know, from satire to being serious to, I'm always laughing. It's just my nature. Some people might think I'm mad. You know, there's some psychologists might call that hiding your problems, but no, for me, it's more about, I always, since a young age, I've always said life is a joke. And I don't know why, I just innately said that. And it's no more true than right now. So, you know, make sure we're dancing through life, understanding that life's on the way, not in the way. Make the most of everything we've got, give it your all, and realize that no matter what's happening around us, you know, the outer world doesn't affect the inner world, and it's our vibration that will shift everything that's happening. And we are living, if you don't know it, you know it now by listening to our conversation today. You're living in one of the most profound and wonderful times, perhaps, in the history of mankind. You don't need to understand what that means, but you will in the coming years. That's all I can say for now.
No,
Thanks a lot, Gary.
thank you. That was a wonderful wrap up. Blessings to you, and we'll talk to you again sometime.
All right. Thank you.
All
Have a good
right.
one.
Bye bye.